answered 3 main questions with this report. Does High Street just feel unsafe, or does it really have a safety problem? Why are these crashes happening? And what are some options to do something about it? So I'm going to run through data. There's going to be a lot of quick stuff, but I'm going to just give you the highlights. Crashes, this is just by severity. There's been 6 fatalities and 24 serious injuries. This is in the past 5 years, from 2020 to 2024. Total of 1,000 crashes. This is all of Clintonville. This is not just on High Street, but I wanted to give you the context. That equals about $43 million in value. If you can really, it's difficult to put value on human life, but it is, they try to, and it's quite a bit of money. And you can see the crashes in Clintonville by street. You can see that High Street accounts for about 36% of all crashes in the neighborhood. It also accounts for a large portion of the fatal and serious injury crashes. So you can see High and Indian, all of their streets. Again, when we look at a map, we can see High Street. This is just all crashes and how dense or sparse they are. High Street pops up, no surprise, based on those other data points. But we dug a little bit deeper. This is crashes per mile, so not just the heat maps. This is actually telling us it's not just that High Street is a very long street. That's not the main reason why it has so many crashes. It actually still has a lot of crashes, even on when you take that into account. And finally, this takes into account the roadway length and the amount of traffic. So you can see per the amount of traffic that it has, it stands out even more. So when you control for some of those other variables, it only pops out more on these maps. So that was pretty eye-opening to us. That kind of tells us that this is not just an eyeballs thing that we are focusing on High Street, and that's why we think there's so many crashes happening there. No, the data is actually backing that up. So when you dig into High Street itself, you can see it has 3 fatalities and 9 serious injuries in the past 5 years. It makes up about 1/3 of all crashes, but it makes up about half of the fatalities, about 40% of the serious injuries. So that's pretty alarming. And then you can see, though it makes up about 30% of the vehicle and bicyclist crashes, it's 60% of our pedestrian crashes. So that's a pretty shocking number. And then we broke it down by intersection. About half of the crashes are intersection related, and our serious injuries have happened at High and Giant Eagle, High and Graceland, and High and North Broadway. That doesn't necessarily mean that those are the most dangerous, because we've also seen at High and Henderson, we have the most. So basically, these are the top ones, but certainly, and I know the city has addressed some of these with those city pedestrian intervals and things like that, but these are certainly the intersections for us to focus on. So why are the crashes happening? In the data, at least, based on the crash reports, we didn't see that distracted driving and alcohol were main contributors to most of these crashes, which I think is surprising. I think most people assume that those are heavy contributors to crashes these days, but they really weren't in this scenario. Same with weather or lighting conditions. Adverse weather was only present in about 12%, and most of these were happening during the day. So we had to basically come up with some of our own potential explanations, and so we talked about it as a planning and development committee, and basically just reviewed some of the different issues that we saw, sort of just based off of our experience. And one of the ones that sticks out to me and to the committee is just the amount of driveways and curb cuts along High Street, which means that there's constantly vehicles pulling out or turning in from the center left turn lane, and that just leads to a lot of potential dangerous turning movements, people pulling out in front of a pedestrian or making a dangerous turn to try to get into a driveway before an oncoming car comes. So that just causes a lot of chaos and a lot of potential issues with safety on High Street. Another one is high speeds. So a lot of people mention speeding, which is a real problem. We don't have data necessarily to see exactly how much people are speeding. That is something the city of Columbus could give us if they did a study. But we can surmise that we think some of the roadway design encourages speeding, so that would be the lanes are wide, it's a fairly straight road, with very few traffic calming measures, things that visually or physically narrow the roadway or sort of encourage somebody to drive at a slower speed. problems because then you have longer stopping distances and worse reaction times. You can see on the graph, depending on your speed, that affects how much distance you travel when you react and then when you brake. And then finally, the high number of pedestrians and bicyclists, that combines with some of those high speeds to create some dangerous scenarios. So you can see this is FHWA research. They found that if you're a pedestrian, you're hit by a vehicle traveling at 20 miles an hour, you have about 9 out of 10 pedestrians survive in that scenario. Even just going up to 40 miles an hour, that drops it down to 1 out of 10. So that just shows that vehicle speed is a very important factor when it comes to the severity of a crash with a pedestrian. And also the 35 mile per hour speed limit. I think this gets into, people may not be speeding necessarily, because I think a lot of people will drive the speed limit, maybe drive 5 miles over, and they're like, okay, I'm safe, I'm in like the safe range. But I think this graph kind of shows you that even if you are driving the speed limit, you still may be posing a danger to pedestrians. So then it comes to, engineers and planners to think of ways that we can maybe slow people down and maybe adjust the design speed of the road. So what can be done? These are just ideas. These are just different things that can be done. They are not, we are evaluating options still for what we are going to request from the city, or what we're going to recommend to the commission to request to the city. So these have not been finalized, but some ideas are traffic calming in general, which can include medians, curb bump outs, narrow travel lanes. Also, as mentioned tonight, leading pedestrian intervals. So that's when you give a pedestrian some additional time to make the crossing before the light turns green. That's another thing you can do to increase some safety at intersections. The next would be a 25 mile per hour speed limit, which again can be useful because you can get people down to that 25 mile per hour, more of a safe speed with pedestrians. But usually just changing the speed limit on its own may not fully affect driver behavior. So that is something to consider. And then finally, a road diet. If you're not familiar, this is whenever you convert a multi-lane road and you remove lanes. So in this case, you convert it from 4 or 5 lane down to 3 lane. When we look at FHWA recommendations, it would be a good candidate based on the amount of traffic. So it has about 11,000 average daily traffic, which was surprising to me because that's about the same amount of traffic that Indianola carries on an average day. So if you look at Indianola is currently a 2-lane with a center turn lane configuration. So it does have fewer lanes, but it carries a similar amount of traffic. So potentially there is a possibility that a road diet could be successful, but again, this would require additional study from the city. But that additional space could then be used for other amenities on the street, like wire sidewalks, street parking, bike infrastructure, or crosswalks. So next steps, we want to continue developing our list of capital project recommendations. This list you're probably familiar with because we continue to bring up similar ideas because they continue to be priorities. But each time we want to develop them a little further. So High Street study will be coming back, where we want to take this data and really maybe cut this into bite-sized chunks for the city. The next would be a targeted safety improvements at dangerous intersections project, which would be more focused on rapid implementation type of things. So things that can be done in the next 1 or 2 years rather than a study, which might take multiple years, and then you have design and then construction. So some more of a focus just on those dangerous intersections. Next would be Whetstone Community Center improvements, and then North Broadway multimodal corridor study. So I know North Broadway was mentioned earlier. That's definitely another one that we want to look at. So yeah, are there any questions?
Thank you so much. I would love to start with, can you share where you got the crash data? And
Yeah, the crash data is publicly available from ODOT. So it's just from public crash reports.
Do other commissioners have questions for Andy?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Really great work, by the way. This is really awesome.
He did.
It's excellent.
The first slide, that was the why crashes happening. You talked about like dangerous turning movements, like a lot of curb cuts, things like that. Was that based off of the crash data as well, or is that just kind of more in general about why crashes happen?
Yeah, a lot of them, it's tricky with crash reports to get, to exactly the cause of the crash, because they have to, put a contributing factor and then, another contributing factor, but they might not necessarily include the
That's
exact movement.
more subjective.
Right,
They're
so
pretty
there's some subjectivity in there for sure,
Mhm.
but definitely that is something that we saw that, someone making a left turn, was a very common reason for a crash. But, we certainly could look into that into more depth and know for sure.
Yeah, Commissioner Rathbone.
You had talked about safety improvements at dangerous intersections and how that could be maybe fast tracked where we
Yeah.
might need a study. What types of things were you thinking of for
Yeah, so
improvements?
the city has done some of these things under their Vision Zero plan. And so those have been using like flex boats, like temporary bollards, or using paint and stuff to maybe do bump outs. The city has acted quickly and done like leading pedestrian intervals because they just have to change the timing of the signal for that. So there's certain things like that can be done. It's still maybe 1 or 2 years. It's not quick, but it's in the scheme of things, it is quick. And ideally, we would focus on those hot spots on that map and try to hit those first.
We talked a lot about the hot spots here in previous meetings, but I don't see like weather and Summit maybe on that list. That's kind of been a hot topic here last year.
So crossing Weber and Summit where it's currently free flow on Weber right there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been a topic of conversation, I think, almost every meeting
Yes.
for at least 8 months, I think. So if somehow that could be added to the hotspot, that's been.
That would have to
pretty
be like
important.
an RFB since it's not stop controlled or signal controlled, but that's something we can definitely take back as feedback. And
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think when we originally pulled the intersections, we just looked at Hyde and Neola, so that's why you didn't see it included on the list. It was just that we didn't have it on our original. We were just looking at Hyde and Neola to start.
Yeah.
It's one of those beacons down at the, informal to cross Weber.
Yes.
And something like that would be awesome.
yeah.
What department are you from? I'm sorry.
We start with commissioner questions and then we'll do public. Thank you for being patient. Do other commissioners have questions? Yeah, Commissioner Lawrence.
The driveway thing is kind of like a double-edged sword though, because if you take away driveways, then it increases traffic on the main thoroughfare, or increases speed, the perception of speed, which then kind of causes more issues.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think we're not necessarily saying that we would recommend getting rid of driveways. There's certain things you could do with medians or right in, right outs where they can't maybe make a left turn onto High, that you can make some adjustments to, especially at places where there maybe was an incident. But certainly, we're just pointing to how there might cause some traffic or safety issues. Maybe not necessarily that we are recommending removing driveways.
Yeah, I understand that the right in, right outs are like even worse for pedestrians because they're almost like off ramp.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah.
I think the driveways, what I've noticed up in District 9, you've ever been around Villanova, any time of the day, there's a lot of conflicting terrain with
Yeah.
this, and so when you have all those curb cuts, anybody can go.
There is a sweet spot where with driveway spacing where you don't create a condition that you just have higher free flow speeds, but you're still consolidating drives and reducing conflict points for pedestrians. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. You have to be careful about how access is managed. But typically the city doesn't revoke access once it's there unless there's a specific effort to do so. But as they're approving new developments, they might try to ask for a consolidated driveway or moving it down to have adequate spacing between them. But all the historical stuff that's already there is likely to remain unchanged.
Can we get a copy?
I ordered it to Commissioner Lawrence to put in the minutes for April's meeting. This is excellent resource and we really appreciate it. We are gonna limit, if folks could try to keep comments to a minute, that way we can get through the full agenda. This is our Planning and Development Committee that's presenting today, to your question from earlier. This is Clinton Blair Commission's Planning and Development Committee.
We're just volunteers.
Just a quick question. I mean, this is great presentation, great information. Where does this go from here? Just a broad overview. How do we get it to the city? How do you push to get something done with this? It's awesome information.
So when we're making the CIP recommendations for potential projects to the commission, we like to be equitable about it. We know that everybody perceives, I perceive a speeding problem on my street, but I know my street is never going to receive a project, right? So what we're trying to do is understand, based on the data, where those hotspots are and what sections need addressed in what order. So as we're going into our next couple of P&D committee meetings, we're gonna refine some concepts and bring them back to this group. And then the commission will decide if they wanna create a resolution to recommend it to the city. In the past, we recommended a shared use path on Indianola between Morse and Lincoln, Chase, Lincoln, whatever. And that one is actually in feasibility studies right now with the city. So the city did take that recommendation and advance it. It'll still take some time to get anything constructed, but at least it's in the queue.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, we had brought a High Street corridor study recommendation to the commission, and basically our feedback or our understanding was that that was too big of a project. To take the whole length of High Street and try to study it all at once was too much. So this was part of information gathering to help us understand the problems a little bit better.
Bite-sized pieces of the worst areas.
Doesn't the city have a traffic study on queue for High Street, like from Library here north a little bit?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
They do.
Yes.
That's what we've heard.
This summer.
I'd be interested to hear that. What comes out of
It's
that.
newer news.
Yeah.
Last couple months.
Can you remind us when your committee meets?
Yes, the last Tuesday of the month.
And these are public meetings as well, so anybody is welcome to attend planning and development committee meetings as well if they wanna dive deeper into these
And
topics.
that's next door?
No, we're at the next.
Clinton Heights Church, it's
10
7.
Heights, right, is the
10,
address.
I think it's 10 or 15. I have to
Okay.
look, but-
It's the first building at Clinton Heights
Yeah.
and High.
and we meet from 7 to 8-ish. So we try to stay on task and keep it moving.
Do we, have a timeline for when we need to submit a CIP resolution?
That was
right now?
something I wanted to ask you, is
Okay.
when we need to have the next round of recommendations to you.
Do you happen to have any idea, or can we follow up after the meeting? Do you know?
Yeah, we don't have anything quite
Okay,
yet. I
yeah.
know that the finance committee is currently about to start conversations, so they're on their way, but we haven't gotten the date yet. So when we do, I will.
Thank you. I know in the past we've called special meetings specifically to have this conversation, so we can really dive deeply into it, and we will likely do that again because it's more than we can fit into a monthly area commission meeting with all of our other business. So we'll be sure to post well in advance as soon as we can once we get that on the calendar.
I think they were due mid-July last year, but
That sounds right.
Yeah, they change, from what I asked, they change each year.
Yeah.
So it could be July, it could be September. So I don't want to tell you guys something, because I'm also new, so.
That's a lot of nothing. Excellent. Yeah.
The two things, that this speeding keeps coming back up and back up. And until there are consequences for inappropriate behavior and people don't keep speeding. They turn up the radio, they put their earbuds in and go. But the one statistic I would like to see in the crash studies of pedestrian vehicle conflict, I would like to know how many of those are pedestrian driven, because especially like on Milton, people walk with their backs to the traffic and they're dressed in a black shirt and black pants, and when you don't see them, but they don't realize you don't see them, they just kind of blend in. And a couple of times I've spoken to people and said, you need to walk facing traffic. I don't want to, okay, fine. But anyhow, and people that have crossed, I will say, the crosswalks are sometimes a challenge because of people turning, or people don't see a car coming, so they take off. How many times, we are quick to blame the vehicle, how many times is it pedestrian? So, do we have any way of knowing if I stepped off the curb in front of a car, you hit me and killed me, you get blamed for killing me, but I stepped off the curb?
So we could go through the serious and fatal crash reports and see who was
Well-
cited in the interaction, but I
Or
think something.
Just any, in general, it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be fatal or injury. How many conflicts are as a result of pedestrian issue?
Yeah, it's tricky because, if that information is available in the crash report, we can make that determination, but that's not always the case. So it is difficult to assign blame in these cases because it is also a crash report just filled out by a police officer at the time. But I think our main focus is on the fact that, if a pedestrian is involved in a crash, they face more consequences than if a vehicle is involved in a crash. So that's why it comes up as a focus for us so much.
The gentleman in the hat had a
Just a quick comment on, I think there may be a need for a pedestrian crosswalk between Morse and Graceland Boulevard. I don't know if the city's considered that, but something like, push the button like where you can have somebody cross the street if you need to, because I see people running out in the street all the time there.
Yeah, that's a popular spot because there's 2 bus
Bus
lines.
stops.
Yeah, the bus stops on the side.
It's a very busy section.
Yeah, and people are speeding there as well.
Mhm.
Yep. Please.
Keep it quick. I was this is semi off topic, but also I know High Street's been involved with it. I think we're up to like over 20 cars that have crashed in a building since like January 1st of this year. And I was wondering if you had any idea of what that's about, and if that's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
Is this
I can only make a guess.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's many
it just
reasons.
seems like too many times for it to be like a coincidence, like over 20 cars into a building in Columbus. I don't know. I've been keeping up with it a little bit on like social media and Google. Then I know there was some guy. Yeah, someone ran in through the new plaza that was built on the intersection of High Street and North Broadway a few months ago, and
That was a
curious.
police chase.
Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah, I knew that was a police chase.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of them are like, I don't know, hit and run, like as if they're not gonna find out you're the car owner. I don't know. I was curious if anyone knew anything about that.
I think it gets to that one graphic about however fast you're going, that increases the amount of time it takes you to react and then brake.
Yeah.
So very easily you could end up being off the road. And
That would be a good way to spend your money, put that on the newspaper, put that.
Let's see if I can get in for
that
free
bit
first.
of information.
Great. Yeah, please.
I'm sorry if I showed up a little bit late, as you saw. You may have already answered this question. I'm sorry if I'm asking it twice. I don't see Morse Road up there. Was that part of the?
It's on
Yeah,
the
so
other
Morse
side.
Road is on there. It's that hotspot that's kind of cut off. That's just because of the Clintonville boundary, the neighborhood boundary. But
Isn't it part of the Clintonville Area Commission though?
It is.
yes, it is up there.
It's up there.
Yeah.
Some horses. Yeah.
Oh, that's Morse.
Yeah.
Thank you. I misinterpreted what I'd seen visually, and I thought that was
Jeffrey Place.
I thought it was North Broadway. I was off a little. I guess last thing then, is someone else commented on the issue of maybe needing a crosswalk on High Street or Morse. Is that what I heard back there?
Between Morse and Graceland Boulevard, yeah.
Morse. Oh, yeah, the intersection. Additionally, and I know I mentioned this a couple of times ago, but I'll just mention it again. The intersection of Morse and Sharon is a section that I sadly suspect someone will die or be gravely injured sometime in the next couple of years because of how bad that's set up and how there are a bunch of families moving in north of there and traffic goes by at like 45 to 50 miles an hour. It's a tragedy waiting to happen. And I'm not sure what to do about that.
At the blinking light.
Yeah, which does nothing.
That's right.
This is my soapbox. Just because an intersection is not marked as a crosswalk, it is still a legal crosswalk for pedestrians anytime there's a curb ramp. So if you see someone walking out into the street and they're not in between white lines, they may still be at a legal crosswalk. It's just unmarked. So I do see a lot of vehicles not yielding to those pedestrians because it's an unmarked crosswalk. We're trying to get more crosswalks marked, but I do think it's a misnomer. People don't think that that's a legal place to cross, but it is.
Yeah, please.
I saw on the last slide you had something about an upcoming North Broadway study. Do you have anything you can share about that?
Yeah, so that's just something that we are currently still evaluating. I think we had talked through an idea for potentially a road diet or some other type of study on North Broadway, but I'm pretty sure the CAC rejected that because we wanted to come back and look at it in more detail.
I think it was in our top 5 last summer.
I think it was in top 5, but I don't know if it made it into the actual request. I could be wrong, but
I have
we.
the receipts. I'll check.
Okay. But that is something that we're still evaluating. So
To help address
we'll have,
speed, to your point.
yeah,
Yeah.
to address
I
speed
live on
and some of
North
the
Yeah,
safety
so I'd
issues.
love to see.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
I have a quick question kind of related to North Broadway. Does anyone know if the blinking, kind of like your speed is, whatever, does anyone know if that has any impact? Like, is there any data out there? Yeah, does it work?
so when those are installed, they initially do show a slight decrease and it's only immediate to the area. Over time, they can become less effective if the people driving there are just used to seeing it. But they do not take photos, it's not photo enforcement, like, it's just a sign. It's meant to deter speeding.
Some people just want to use it to get their high score.
That's true. I used to work in the city, when we did install them, there was a positive effect from them being installed about 6 months after and a year after, I believe, something like that. But I don't know if they've continued to gather speed data since.
Okay, thanks.
Any additional public comment before we move on? Yeah.
Can I piggyback on that question for
Sure.
a second? Because it's right by the hospital, I have a feeling that a lot of people maybe end up going down North Broadway and maybe not people who haven't been here a lot. So I think there might be some, impact on that particular speed gauge or whatever you call that. What are those called exactly?
Radar speed signs. Usually a lot of these things we're talking about tonight, like reducing this posted speed and then doing some of the design things, work best when you do them in combination instead of isolation from each other. So that's something too we're thinking about as we develop recommendations is like, how can we incrementally build on things so we eventually get a better built environment. And I know we're behind, so we'll just shut up now.
We were behind when you all started, and this conversation is extremely important. So we are happy to be a little bit behind for this one. Thank you so much for taking the time to present and plan and collect this data. Cannot wait to put this on the website. I feel like we should put it on our social media and get it everywhere. And we're eager to plan our special meeting when it comes time to get the recommendations together. So please share our gratitude with the rest of the P&D committee as well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Lotta has graciously agreed to postpone the Tulane and Crestview restoration update conversation so that we make sure we have enough time for our zoning agenda and all of our public comments this evening. Could we call up, is Susan Gauntz here to talk about the school resource fair? Yeah, welcome.
Hi, you want me to postpone or?
No.
I can be quick.
No, we're making time so we can hear from you.
All right.
No, we're happy to
My
have
name's
you.
Susan Gomez. I live on Torrance. I was in District 4 and on the commission for about 10 years. And at the time we started an education committee because, and thank you, by the way, for Commissioner Lotta for allowing me to talk tonight. But so at the time we were trying to come up with the ways for the schools, the community to get more involved with the schools. So we were tired of watching our friends. At the time, the problem was a lot of people would move to the suburbs as soon as their kids became school age. They moved to the suburbs, and so you might be familiar with Clintonville Go Public. We work in tandem with them. They have a very similar mission, but one of our missions was we didn't care where you sent your kids. We just didn't want you to move. So some of the things we did, we tried to work on things that were district wide as far as public schools. Like, give you a couple of examples. Fifth graders at Clinton used to go to 2 separate schools, and we worked district wide to make sure fifth graders were never separated. We lobbied to get Indianola into the school it is now. We also moved to push the lottery for the schools used to happen like in October. And it was terrible because they'd switch around like the teachers at the last minute and the kids would get moved around. So the lotteries have moved back up. So anyways, that was a couple of things. But one of the things we started with the school fair. And the reason I'm bringing this up now is because Cliff, which we all know, called me up and he said, whatever happened to the school fair? And so,
So many things start.
yeah, he does. He like puts his fingers on. So I'm like, well, so North Broadway Children's Center originally had the school fair, and we kind of took it over and still had it at the North Broadway Children's Center. Then we moved it to Charity News, and you want to pass these out. So one of the things, ironically, the four diehards of the Clintonville Area Commission Education Committee still meets once a month at Indio. So, and so we're all laughing, like, they can't really try to pull us back in. But the last one we had was in 2017, almost 10 years now. And what we would do is put out a survey to all the schools, ask them to answer all the same questions. We had parents come, they would talk, all the schools had a booth. They would talk to the, whoever was there from the schools, and then we had all the schools talk for a couple minutes. And then after they talked, people would go back and talk, go to the booth, different booths and suits. So, we decided, again, and even after I was off the commission, we still did it for like another 8 years. But we're like, we gotta pass the baton, which we passed it back to North Broadway Children's Center, and they do have like a very small version of it. So what we were thinking about is, coming to the 21st century, that all of this could be done online. Like you can have, this is how I'm gonna spend your money if you're interested. Is like, if you could have like a section for the schools, and they would be in charge of doing it, but like Clinton Elementary would have their own file folder. A parent clicks on it, they could have a brochure in there, they could have a video in there, we could still do a survey monkey, have them all answer the same questions and put all those in their folders. But that way, parents can see, because it's hard when your kids become school age, where am I gonna send my kids? So I know that Clinton now is so awesome. I guess not awesome, but people even in the neighborhood are getting turned down, which is, that's amazing. But it's, but still, it's such a hard decision. So if it's possible to do something like that, I just didn't know where to house the information. And the Clintonville site seems like a good place. And who would do it? That's the other.
So you bring up a very, we are at a point where we are in desperate need of a tech and PR chair right now, and I just read that our current paid assistance for graphic or online design is looking to stop providing services after many, many years of very, very discounted services to us, which is so generous and kind, and we should do a really nice thank you to her. So the who is a big question.
But even like just hosting it.
Yeah. I don't have the website building knowledge to know. I do our social media right now, which is why it looks how it does, and I do our agenda posting on our website. So I don't have the technical acumen to answer that question, but I would be happy to help shepherd the person to get into this role to explore it, because I think it's a great idea.
Susan, what happened to the committee? Like you say, before we still meet, but why is it not part of or subcommittee of the CAC anymore?
Well, I did come back to the CAC. I forget when it was, but I did come back again to kind of make the same lead, have somebody do it. But it wasn't I couldn't do, and I work so much. We all work a lot, and just finding a time to meet once a month, we laugh, it's just, I would love, trust me, I would love to get involved with that, but it's just everybody's time. And to me, I would so much rather, pass the time.
So the committee's not,
No, we just joke, it's not a committee anymore. And it wasn't really a committee after, like when I left the commission, no one took that up again.
So it's not like it disappeared during COVID or anything
No,
like that?
no. It disappeared like in 2010. It probably started around 2003.
But do you think it needs to be online instead of in person? Because I know, I thought it was helpful when I was looking, shopping schools for my boys to go to that event and see each table in person, not just online. And granted, that was
I would love to
20
do
years
it
ago.
in person, but I just feel like people are so weird about doing this in person anymore after COVID. Maybe they're changing their minds,
I think we're seeing more turnout at community events in person, but I think having an online repository, like I think about when I was moving to Clintonville and buying my home in Clintonville, I would have wanted to be able to look online, and both of my daughters are at Indianola now, but and we love it, but that's because of word of mouth. It wasn't because we found a formal resource. So I think there is tremendous value in this idea.
I mean, because we have great schools here, like all different types of schools.
Great
So,
diversity.
and I wouldn't tell any parent where they send their kid, that's a personal decision, but there's, you just give them the information.
Do other folks have questions or thoughts before we open it up? Any questions or comments? Yeah, please.
I'm on. Who's the primary contact for the schools? Like, who's the person who reaches out to each of the schools when we have those events, to say like, hey, bring a table? Like, how did that work?
That was the committee.
It
It
was
was
the committee.
email. We had
Email?
yeah.
You still have that? Is that stored somewhere?
Yeah.
'Cause I was
We'd
just
have
say-
to update it.
I was just say, if it's, I mean, I don't think it has to be that complicated. I mean, at a bare minimum, it could be sending out a Google form to each of those, or, Survey Monkey, like you said, to each of those emails.
I
and
think
just
she's
say-
volunteering.
Yeah.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, again, if I'm not gonna commit to anything, but there is, I have done similar things like that before, and if there is like anyone who's like as involved, I'm not super familiar with the committees in the CAC right now, but
You don't need to do this.
yeah, well, if there's any like education encompassing body, if to again, because all of that you have to do is again get those results and post them, and I mean.
But that's the question too, where to put it. And that, I guess, would you be amenable to putting it on the website?
100%. Yeah. I just don't think we have anybody at this table who's the website.
I don't think our website is ready for it at this point. I hate to say it.
But I don't know where else, like the Clintonville Spotlight, but that's more than news.
We also have a website through the city
Yeah.
that we have access to, that I think we're one of maybe like the black sheep that also have our own separate website going, but.
They're actually updating that. They're going to release a new version of it that's a lot better, and it is free.
That may be the place to.
I mean, I don't know.
Each area commission has their own page on the city's broader web, so that it is free to us, and that could be a great place. And if it's easier to post stuff too, that might be, because currently it's WordPress, as is our site, I think, and it's just, unless you're somebody who works in WordPress every day, it's hard to make it pretty and like easy to navigate,
And Mitchell can get the information.
Mitchell, do you have contact info you can leave behind?
She's really good at what she's doing right now.
Well, I would love to keep the conversation going, and we can let you know once we've got access to the new platform on the new website. We are gonna renew, I've got a lead that I need to do a better job on following up on for tech and PR PR chair role. So we will try to fill this.
And again, like to
technical
your
gap.
point, it'd be nice for somebody to pick this up and do something in person. It's just coordinating, just to keep it going. But
Well, we can also put out a call for I will just say, my calls for volunteers don't generate
I know, well, I understand.
as many as
Totally
I would
understand.
hope. But we can put out a call for volunteers on our social
But there's
media.
diehards out there.
Have you chatted with the principals at all lately?
I'm just, no.
I'm just wondering if the local principals could come together and figure out their
Well,
own.
I think they loved it because
They
they
did.
all.
It's
met
marketing
each
for
other.
them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess I don't understand this. The city of Columbus Public Schools do not have an avenue.
No, they do. This was just Clintonville, and it was all schools.
So it's public and non.
And parochial, and charter schools, and
Every option.
every
Okay.
option.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, please.
I would love to volunteer.
Hey, give this woman, give this class.
I have a 3.5-year-old, so we're thinking about schools and looking at schools and stuff, so.
Don't move out, don't move out of the.
I'm not going anywhere. I told my husband we're not leaving. I was like, you can, I'm staying.
Well, this will certainly help you figure out.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, anything, if
Hey, I was
form
pregnant
and
with Jen
education.
when I started this.
Time flies.
Yes, time to go.
Any, if an education committee or anything like that is formed, I would love to volunteer for that. But as far as anything more informal, reaching out to schools, like happy to help.
If we call it a task force, it's formed right now. If we don't call it a committee and have to change our bylaws. That's how we form the
Do it.
homelessness task force.
Yeah.
Good to know.
If you wouldn't mind sharing your contact info before you go,
Absolutely.
please do. Wonderful.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
That's
We
good.
really appreciate
Yeah.
it. You're welcome anytime.
Appreciate it. It's nice to meet you here. And this woman, oh my gosh, I cannot believe you're still coming to every month.
Every month.
I mean, you're like 30 years or something. What is it?
Oh, let's not stop
Okay. You serve a special award.
Clintonville has 5 years, so it's like,
My gosh. Sandy. Oh,
Thank you so much for being here.
no problem.
We are going to transition to our zoning and variance agenda. Chair Hardwick.
Speaking about social media, I did start CAC zoning notices. If you go to Blue Sky, I started posting them there, because I just can't deal with X. I just can't post there in good conscience. Deleted my personal account, and if someone wants to post there, Ty still has the contact.
Understood.
Anyway, but still, we have 4 items on the agenda. First one is the demolition of a house that the commission quite some time ago approved the variances to build, to replace. That's 4586 Star Road. And all we're doing is we're talking about waiving the 60-day period for, waiting period for it. It started to run a few days, about a week, just before the zoning variance committee meeting. And it was approved, it was recommended approved by 8-0. Do I know if we have the applicant here?
You do.
Yes. Yeah. But I don't think it's that complicated. I think that's all I have to say.
Are there any questions from commissioners for the applicant? Pretty straightforward. Is there anything you'd like to add to?
Just that, I appreciate everything you guys all do. Also been in Clintonville most all of my life. My grandparents lived in the house catty corner across the backyard from this one that my daughter and grandson and son-in-law live in. We planned on demoing the house for quite some time. We're just asking for wait the 60-day waiting period. We've been through, there's no historical significance to the house. There's no architectural significance. It's prior to us buying it was sided with vinyl siding and vinyl windows and, just a small house built on a slab, and it's a very beautiful setting that we're trying to make nicer.
And I haven't received any communications about any opposition to this, and just for clarity for everyone who's not familiar with the demos, if we don't waive the 60-day period, then we're not stopping the project, it's just slowing it down, and it'll still get done in 60 days, so there's not a lot of utility in doing so. All right, are we prepared to vote? Yes. Commissioner Moritz?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Saucer?
Yes.
Commissioner Hadley?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Crowder?
Yes.
Commissioner West? Congratulations on your project.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sticking through the agenda.
Just as a matter of fact, I do always notify the Clintonville Historical Society's representative in case I'm wrong about what, that I don't see anything historic about it. The next one we is 162 East North Broadway. They want to build a shed that's 19 feet 1 inches high instead of 15 feet. They've already, this is in addition to the garage they already had, which they got a height variance for. This is, the committee, the minutes, draft minutes say 7-0 approved. I'm not sure why that's not 8-0. I'll ask Michael Hall.
Sharon wasn't there at that
Sharon?
time. She showed up at number 5, didn't she?
Yeah, but we listed 8-0 for the demo agenda before that. So.
And I think that was incorrect.
Okay, I will double check.
Yeah, she showed up at number 5.
Okay.
The minute said.
Okay, then the first one was 7. Thank you. East North, the reason it was, I think it's approved so easily is East North Broadway is its own world. The houses are much bigger there, the yards are much bigger, and a shed, a shed with a 19-foot roof would look a lot better than the sheds many of us have in our backyards that we can just pile clothes and put up. And we have no opposition to it, unanimous recommendation for approval. And it was only the height variance, nothing else.
It's quite a shed.
Any questions or comments from commissioners for Chair Hardwick? And the applicant is here.
That's me.
How's it going?
Okay,
Nice to see you. Good to see you. Did you have anything you wanted to add to Chair Hardwick's presentation?
No, we're just excited to continue renovating this property and add some more value to it in the neighborhood. Hoping to do a landscaping and whole landscape plan with this addition of this accessory structure. So.
Any questions from the public? Sure.
Yes, I do want to thank you. I guess this home was built in 1924. Again, I do thank you for restoring your home. Again, you're talking about putting the something tied to the garage, I do believe. Could you explain more about where that's going to be? Because I have a picture of it right here.
Yeah, there's a site plan up here. So it's a third structure on the site plan. It's not attached to the second structure of the garage. Is a separate shed or accessory building that will be on the east side of the property, 5 feet from the adjacent property owner.
And my other question is there other homes like this in the area that was built way before 1924, if I may ask that question?
I would assume so.
I'm going to take the feed time.
Any other questions or comments from viewers? Commissioner Moritz?
Just.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Saucer, yes. Commissioner Heinley?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Commissioner Lada?
Abstain.
Thank you. Commissioner Nutter?
Yes.
Commissioner Osborne?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Congratulations on the project.
Thank you.
The next one is council. We have 2 council variances are the last 2 items on the agenda. 239 West Como in order to build a new detached garage with a second floor habitable space for an art studio. The applicant is requesting to reduce the side yard setback to increase the height of the garage from 15 feet to 22 feet 4 inches, and to allow for habitable space to be not connected directly to the habitable space within the single unit dwelling. The owner reported that the previous garage was destroyed by fire. That I built a new garage with habitable space to be used as an art studio. And the setback variance is required to allow the structure to be positioned so as not to disturb an existing tree. The recommended approved was 7-1 to 7-1. Diane Hayford said she's in favor because it had no plumbing and the location of the tree is a hardship. Michael Hall was not in favor of the committee because we have very little direction. I think this is a constant theme among these. I can't promise you what the city's going to treat this as a year from now. And if that uncertainty means you think we should not approve it, then Michael Hall is correct. If you could live with that uncertainty, then you could look at it otherwise. But I think that was the main objection to it, is that he didn't know what it could become in the future based on how the city might treat these in the future. But he isn't asking to turn it into a quote unquote second residence. She's at, I think she's here as well.
I'm her husband.
Okay.
Would you like to add any additional comments?
Well, she's looking forward to if we get to do it, I can get my art stuff out of the house. So yeah, so basically, yeah, we're looking to add that second story so I can move my studio out of the existing dining room and office that we have it in. No plumbing, just electrical. It's gonna be open space on the second floor. Again, the variance we're looking for the side setback, it's very similar to where the existing garage was, that burned. And then there's, like you're saying, there's a giant walnut tree there on the west side that we just don't want to get too close to, so that's.
Thank you. Are there questions for the applicant from commissioners?
When was the fire?
Thanksgiving Day.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And are there brief questions from the public? Okay. Go.
Yes, you're talking the property, 239 Como Avenue.
Yes.
The property was built in, I believe, in 1925 with 7 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and 1 bath. I want to ask you a question. I know the house caught on fire, but I don't know what year that was. You have an art studio, and you want to move it into the garage. Is that your only hobby that you do in your spare time?
I actually I did woodworking in there as well.
Oh, okay.
I also airbrushed in there. So it was my primary hangout spot.
Okay. Something like this leisure time, something like that?
Yeah, actually, I'm emerging artist in the Columbus Arts Fest this year too, so. I'm hoping to do more art in there in the future.
Cool. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Unless any commissioners have additional comments, we'll proceed to votes. Commissioner Moritz?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Saucer? Commissioner Heidley?
Yes.
Commissioner Lotta?
Yes.
Commissioner Nutter?
Yes.
Commissioner Lee Osborne? Yes. And I'm also a yes. Congratulations on your project.
The next one, I know, the minutes, it probably was, my guess is it's my mistake from the draft agenda, but it's 25, CV 25010, not CV 24012. That's the city number, just
Yep.
for whatever the recommendation form is, it's a 25, not a 24. I'm sorry about that. In order to renovate an existing partially finished garage and turn it into accessory dwelling unit, the applicant seeks variances from it. You have to look at the draft minutes, because they came up with this frequently happens, is people in the process, the city says they need more variances to complete it. And so there are 8 variances to allow for a single family dwelling unit, a single family dwelling and an accessory dwelling unit on a single lot in an R3 residential district. So they're asking for permission to turn it into a dwelling unit, and then they have to have permission for it to be on an alleyway, to front of an alleyway instead of a public street, to allow for no additional parking. So this is a total of 2 parking spaces in the driveway and an accessory dwelling, and no additional spaces, with 4 would normally be applied. And the other, they have lot width and area requirement, and minimum side yard rear yard changes, rear yard, minimum side yard, area requirements, lot width requirements, it all come because they have 2 units, they're asking to have 2 units on the same lot. The architect appeared, the committee recommended against 3 to 5 to 0. I think both Diane and Michael were concerned about, they have no guidance as to what this is going to be used with. The lot size was too small for the dwelling. Jason and Bonnie voted no because he's concerned about parking. And I didn't think it was a footprint change. It is a use change, so that it's not a footprint change. It's a use change. It's using the existing buildings that are there, which is why I believe the rest of the committee, the 3 of us voted yes. Again, the no votes, 1 on this, Michael Hawtai, 3
to explain that. Hope I explained that properly.
Thank you. Is the applicant here, and would you like to add anything else to the presentation?
I'm just gonna stand up because I'm the
Sure.
background, but yeah, no, it was voted no. I would just like to kind of reiterate for everybody, the structure is existing. It was at one point a garage. It was probably converted, if we could guess, 30 years ago into not a garage. So there's not been parking since then. We're looking at doors and windows on the facade of the building that already exist and are present today. The skylights already exist. The structure already has electricity. The structure is already conditioned. It already contains heating and cooling. We're asking for it to become a formal legal dwelling in which we'll be doing upgrades and providing plumbing for this. The applicant is a man that lives alone. He's a single adult that lives there, so I understand the parking concerns for sure. There's an updated site plan because they had us just indicate where people could park. Conceivably, if you really wanted to, you could have 5 parking spaces on the current driveway and parking pad that exists today. You know, no one would ever do that because that would be kind of crazy. But it conceivably could happen, I guess we'll say. In general, he is really active in his church, and he's looking to provide a space for youth members of his church to live when they are currently visiting his parish. There's like a rotating parish situation going on right now. So he's looking to convert it into a legal 300 square foot apartment, whereas previously it was an illegally converted garage that has been converted for about 30 years. He talked to every single one of his neighbors that were on the mailer list. One that are owner occupied, there are some that are owned by people that live in different states. And every single one expressed support for the project. And I don't believe any of them are here to say anything against it. So he talked to every neighbor on the street to make sure that they're okay with it before coming forward with this application.
That is always my first question.
I just want to emphasize that. So he went in person to do it as well. I would love to know what other questions you guys have for it, because we were, I guess, not expecting the no vote at the previous commission.
Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Josh Tony. I'm the architect representing the owner of the project.
Commissioner Lott.
So the building is not changing height at all, you're just renovating the interior?
No, nothing
Stays as is.
The only thing that is changing is that we are too close to the property line to have windows on one side, so we are removing them in order to make the building safer.
I too spoke with some of the neighbors, and they were in favor of it too. So.
Other questions from commissioners?
I have a question.
Miller.
There's an alley in the rear of the house. Do any of the other garages have direct access to the alley? And
Yeah, some of them face the back. For whatever reason, this one was constructed with a driveway and garage door previously that faced the front. There's actually a house directly behind it, because there's part of some houses that face the driveway, or that face the alleyway as well. So this is kind of similar to the existing neighborhood character in that it's not even a carriage house, it's just full homes that are facing on the alley back there.
It's a pretty, there's garages that open up on that full alley all in South Bend. It's pretty good.
Any other questions from commissioners? Any additional questions from the public? Sure.
I don't know so much. The question is a reminder that this is a 38-foot lot. It's not even a 40-foot lot. So it already is tight, and because is it 48 or 49 East Tulane, there's already a parking issue with the Papa Joe's, and that area already suffers from congestion. So it sounds nice, and as long as this nice man is living there, everything's nice. This doesn't belong to the man, it belongs to the property. So take that into consideration when you think about if you live on that street.
Hi, just quickly, there's a ADU that was approved by this commission on Tulane by Esmond, and that's on a 32-foot lot, and it's a huge addition. It looks great.
So one wrong way, so if you did one thing wrong, it's okay to keep doing the same thing wrong.
That's precedence, and I don't know that it's necessarily wrong. It's
your point of view.
Yeah, your point of view.
Any additional questions from the public before we move to vote? Thank you so much. Commissioner Moritz?
Yes.
Commissioner Miller?
Yes.
Commissioner Saucer? Yes. Commissioner Hively?
Yes.
Commissioner Lotta?
Yes.
Commissioner Nutter?
No.
Commissioner Lee Osborne?
No.
And I will be a yes. Congratulations on your project.
It's not guaranteed, it's just a recommendation.
Yes. information to the council. That is how the process works. We hear you up here. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Hardwick, for your zoning agenda, and we are going to try to go ahead and move on to, I believe the next item is Columbia Gas.
It is.
And we've got Pete.
Favorite girl.
As long as you bring donuts, that's your time.
So excited to be here, right? The light is so near, right? So I just want to call out some of the things that we're doing. First thing, so we had a meeting at the beginning of March with Tulane residents, specifically at the church. From there, we had a meeting last week on 325 for Tulane and for Weber residents, and then we also had a meeting this past Monday for Tulane and Weber residents. So listening to the community, I know all of the concerns. I have every complaint logged. We are working hand in hand with the city and the director of public service. They have also heard every complaint, and so literally at like 5:30, I got a call and he said, "Hey Leah, I want to know the plan. I need to know what you guys plan to do, and then from there we'll review it, and then we will go to next steps." So working actively. What I can say is we'll be out of your hair by the end of the summer. But the work itself will be done at the end of May, probably before that. And that's for Tulane, and so that restoration will begin. I'm gonna send out an email tomorrow. I just had so many in-person meetings this week, and I wanted to be able to like download and include that in the monthly newsletter. And in that newsletter, I'm gonna do a final call out, but not really a final call out of anyone that has any of those damage claims. So we can put that in two separate files, merge them together, and start that review process. For the Weber sites, in that email that I sent, I will include a QR code for feedback, but I do have a bias for residents that are closer in proximity to those spaces because they will be directly impacted. Just to call out, what we're leaning towards is two like sunflower gardens with like other plants that are kind of prickly. That's kind of what we decided. So aesthetically, it's beautiful, but it doesn't invite people to like walk through. That's how I was explaining it. And then also just leaving it as a green space, it can create like, you know, a dog park where it's a lot of like things that are not wanted. So I'm still taking that feedback from the community, but I'm really optimistic as to what that looks like. And then on Tulane, I've also been working with the city Department of Forestry. I mean, we talk a lot, and so what we've realized is that work that's taking place, there's soil compaction, and so we are obligated for the next 3 years to monitor all of those trees to ensure that if something should happen, we are responsible. And so that is our commitment to Clintonville. And then, yeah, I'm happy. I'm always here to support. I'm always here to listen. I mean, it's my community too. I feel like I'm here enough. Whatever you need from me, I listen. I try to get it done in the same day. I can't always make those promises, but you are heard, you are seen, and we're headed in the right direction. So,
Commissioners of jurisdiction, do you have anything to kick off?
Oh, I do. There's been a lot of effort with residents on Tulane to reach out to the city to see if the restoration can be better. People have reached out to city council and have reached out to public service, and someone even actually had a meeting with
Andrew Williams.
Andrew Williams.
I'm telling you, I know everything.
Yeah.
I'm listening.
So, you know more than I do. But there's just a really concerted effort to make this restoration right.
No, and I completely agree. And so, like, all of the concerns, they know about the petition. He's like, do you know? I say, yes, Aaron Johnson. I know who did that because I was there when we started it, right? So I know what is wanted, but I always just lead with, we will do as much as we can, but we can't just do what we wanna do.
Did you go through and check downspout and
Yes.
sump pump drain locations, especially with the rain that we're gonna get here? next
I
week?
got 12 emails about cracked, pipes.
Yeah.
I don't know the word.
Vibration.
No,
They
the pipe.
pressed it up. So all of those have been replaced. And if it wasn't, nobody told me that it wasn't. But when people emailed me back and said, "Oh, thank you, it's been resolved." So from my understanding, it was resolved. But again, if there's an issue, let me know, and I literally call as soon as I either talk to you on the phone or
Yeah, when you send out your email tomorrow, can you make mention of that and say, hey, if you have a cracked downspout outflow pipe, or whatever the correct terminology is, let me know.
It's like a
It's just basically
water drain, the water
the
drain.
outflow pipe from people's gutters and sump pumps.
That's the word.
So after you restore the street, Blueprint will come back in 26.
Don't see, that's not me though.
I know.
And so, but also, just so you know, like, I'm aware of that, and so those are part of the conversations, because there are alternatives to how we repair. So we could easily say, well, if you're gonna come, we can do a temporary restoration, you come in and do your work, and then they can do a final restoration. So those conversations are happening just as well to do what makes sense. But a big call out was, Leah, we want sandstone. I fought that fight, but that is not a thing, because the city has their own, like you talk about precedent, it is not a historic district. So when they remove that, it goes into storage with the
That's
city
right.
of Columbus.
They stored our curbs for use in historic districts.
I just read what is given to me, but I will always fight for you. That is the truth.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and that's my pet peeve right there, is that having one side of the street with stone and the other side of the street with the concrete.
I would rather
That's not
it
how
be-
it was found, and that's not how it should be put back, and that's where we need to talk with the city, we need to talk with neighbors, whatever this process is, but I don't think that's a good enough solution, for that street.
And so, and I would, and I know that in a dream world, we would do sandstone on both sides, but I completely understand, okay, if we can't do that, can we at least get concrete on both sides? And from the water pump aspect, concrete may work better from a foundational aspect of how they input those drains.
It works, yeah.
Well,
The cord needs cord drill for it.
yeah, whatever, I'm trying, the big picture is I'm trying, whatever you say, I'm gonna relay those messages, whatever the issues are, I will work to resolve them. But the beauty is I will be out of your hair in like the next 3 to 4 months, but I'll still be here. But as far as like actively working, tearing up the streets, it's coming to an end.
Do we know who to talk to at the city about the concrete limestone discrepancy? Okay.
And just always, you can always, add me on those emails, because Councilman Dorns knows me by name now. So I'm like, Leo, it's Columbia Gas. Yes, that's me.
Commissioner Morris, did you have something else?
I have a question. I saw, of course, I read those emails as well, and there are many. One of them was about idling trucks on 2 lane. Was that addressed?
Yeah, because they finished the project.
They drove away.
They drove away.
Thank you for closely reading those emails, though.
Yeah, because that project.
Yes, we had, my wife was homesick and we had pickup truck, or dump trucks idling in front of the house. It was an 8-hour period.
Makes no sense.
Yeah.
And I addressed that as well. And so the goal was, if they don't have to run it, don't run it, but also if you don't have to have 4 trucks on this narrow street, can we spread it out? So I've asked for just creative ways to give you space to just breathe a little bit. I'm working on that as well. But again, we can see clearly now, the rain is gone. It's almost. I know, we're close, but I'm here for you, as always.
Well, thank you for coming back. We've got 5 or 6 minutes left in this room, so if somebody has a question very directly related to what we're talking about, because we still need to do general public comment.
I know your house, our
No, this is about something else all the way, this is
Okay.
very important.
Is
But-
is it related to Columbia Gas?
No, it's.
Okay, then let's pause, because you've had a lot of opportunities, so let me open it up to the room really quick, in case other folks had, is there a public comment not related to Columbia Gas that folks wanted to touch tonight, that they haven't gotten to touch on? Yes.
Probably be like 30 seconds. Back to Morris Road real quick. What steps should I or anyone else interested in seeing some kind of improvement on the dangerous aspect of the flow of traffic there take next? Yes, please.
Make a report on 311.
I did.
Do it again. Have your
I
neighbors
did.
do it. Have your
I've had
neighbors
other
do it
people do
again.
it. Still not.
Encourage them, well, it gets in the system and it repeats.
Okay.
And the app on your phone is a really useful way to do it too. So encourage your neighbors to do it.
Yes.
Call the community liaison, or the temporary one, ask for an officer to measure speed and do ticket.
Well,
Jacob has an idea too.
Yeah, we can talk about it as well as part of our CIP request, and see if we can come up with some potential recommendations. But also, that segment of Morse Road is also 23, so there's an ODOT component there too. So making any changes is gonna include
slowing traffic down somehow.
Yeah,
I
and
would
so
also encourage you to email city council
yeah.
and say it's an ongoing concern and that you have submitted multiple 311 requests and appeared before the Clintonville Area Commission and it's still an issue.
Are you the one who put up the sign on the pole?
Maybe. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
Did you have a question?
Asking neighbors to
It
contact
says call
311.
311.
We got another
That's all.
comment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, usually I wait 2 to 3 minutes to cross the road, but it's not too uncommon to wait 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes 14 minutes. Nobody should have to wait 14 minutes to cross. Sometimes it gets in my mind to just want to weave between the cars, but want to live another 80 years. But everyone north of that road is pretty much trapped. Yeah.
Are you talking about High and Morse specifically, or are you
Morse
talking
and
Sharon? Is that what Morse and Sharon? Okay.
Yeah. Is that where the crosswalk is? It'd be nice if there.
Yeah, but
If
no
you
one's
want to call it that, yeah.
It's not a crosswalk. It's protected. No one observed.
It would be nice if there was a modern crosswalk there. You can press a button and the cars actually stop. You can safely cross.
Thank you. Was there other public comment here?
Hi, I own a business on High Street, Rewash and Fillery, 3133 Park High. The Clintonville CABA suggested I come here. I have been fighting a 3-year battle with parking, that we do not have parking coming down to Ticket in a 2-hour parking zone. And I have done half a dozen 311 requests. I've visited the parking 5 times. So I'm just here for help with who to ask to get some reinforcement, because the biggest feedback I get is I would have come to your shop sooner had there been parking available. And we have residents who live above my building who park for 3-4 days at a time without moving. So I'm here for help of who I can talk to.
It's very frustrating because we have, we don't have a community liaison right now from the police department, and
We may have one in 2 months.
I don't think you want to wait 2 months.
With busy season, farmer's market, all of these things, this is like a crucial time for my business, and the amount of money that my store generates for sales tax towards the city, I'm like at my wit's end, because this is over a 3-year battle. We're about to celebrate 4 years in business, and I'm at my wit's end, so whoever.
Have you spoken to the landlord to talk to their residents?
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's probably the first thing.
They don't care, but they say then somebody should come ticket, and nobody comes, and I call non-emergency, and I do 311, and I go down to parking, and they are all stuck in the short north.
Did you say that the main issue is your customers are getting ticketed?
No, there's no tickets being issued. There's residents above my store that park on Friday when they come home from work and do not leave until Monday. And there's only 4 spots in front of my shop. Otherwise, you're playing Frogger across High Street, running across from where Right Pat used to be. And it's affecting all businesses on my block.
Sam, have you tried to get a 15-minute parking sign?
So there's a 2-hour, and I've written so many notes saying, please move your car, this is directly impacting my business, and they say nothing, like, they're not concerned. They say, well, the city should come ticket us. Nobody's enforcing it, it's not my problem.
Well, I'm happy to reach out to the city as well.
Yeah.
And be a chorus of support. Commissioner Marks, do you have another idea?
We got the contact information for a temporary liaison, and so.
We should have a temper, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll share that with you.
Okay.
yeah,
I think we need to do that.
yeah,
Who's the temporary?
I have to go through the minutes.
yeah. It is in the minutes last month, but thank you for coming, and I'm sorry that you're dealing with this, and we'll try to add our voice to support. Okay, the library, did you have a 30-second? I know you had your hand up, and
10 minutes. You talked about Clintonville. I just visited this street today. This stuff is not being painted, but a friend of mine took me in the car and found 30 kids walking down this street here. Even though we talk about paving, the crosswalks, this is part of Clintonville. And a friend of mine took me over there, and we saw about 30 kids with one grown adult leaving out of that school. So this is something very important.
where was this in Clintonville?
This is right here at Kroger's and a couple businesses on the side. There's a school down the street. And there's this bank over here called, I think American something like that.
Broadway High.
Yeah, so this is the East of Broadway High.
To North Broadway Children's Center.
They're going to aftercare.
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for being here tonight. And if you're able-bodied and can move your chair